is actually the first, sorry, there was technical difficulties, but I think we corrected it. So this is actually the first Facebook Live where you get to ask us questions. Well, actually, to a TSA subject matter expert. And today we have the ultra popular Instagrammer, Insta famous Bob Burns, aka Blogger Bob, who's our social media manager, who runs this amazing Instagram. If you haven't seen it or check it out, you got to, but we'll tell you more about that. So when we talk about the federal government, we're not thinking about social media.
No.
So you have to let us know, how did TSA get started with Instagram?
Well, we had started a blog in 2008, and around 2011, we started sharing some of the crazy things that people attempted to bring through TSA checkpoints. And they were so popular, and I had been using Instagram personally, and I knew there was like a love for quirky images on Instagram. So I thought, these would probably work really well, and we'd have a different demographic with Instagram than we have on the blog. So sure enough, I started sharing the images on Instagram, and it just kind of blew up. In fact, I think it only took a week or two until Jimmy Kimmel was talking about it. I had posted a picture of this ridiculous gun with a knife blade that comes out of it, and I had like all these hashtags like gun to a knife fight and all these different ridiculous hashtags. And Jimmy made the comment that we used more hashtags than a 13-year-old girl.
Well, I mean, we have to go back to 2015. Mm-hmm. So Rolling Stone puts TSA's Instagram as number 4, beating Beyonce. Did you get any hate from their beehive? Like, did you get any hate from the Beyonce fans?
I didn't get any hate that I'm aware of, but I still expect Kanye to knock on my door and tell me I didn't deserve it.
Oh, damn. I mean, So tell me, you got that phone call, so you have to tell us, what was that like?
Well, actually, I got an email. I was speaking at some engagement somewhere, and I checked my email just expecting to get regular work emails, and I see this email with all caps saying, Rolling Stone top 100 Instagram accounts to follow. And I thought, we're probably like 60 or 70 or something. Number 4.
Holy cow.
And and the list goes on of people that were above us. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it. You're thinking, here we are, a government social media account, up against all these Goliaths, and we're like number 4.
I know, you have over 800,000 followers. Mm-hmm. So what would you say attributes to the success of this TSA federal agency's Instagram account?
It's a blend of several things. It's a shock value for number 1. People don't come to a government Instagram account and expect to see humor, and they also don't expect to see these crazy things that people are trying to bring on a plane. In fact, before we started posting these images, a lot of people didn't realize that we found so many firearms. We have about 70 firearms a week that people try to bring through and carry on bags.
I mean, we're live, right? So if you guys have any questions to Bob in regards to the Instagram account, we welcome them. Bring them along. We're ready to answer as many as we can in the allotted time that we have together. So going back to your posting, so what inspires you? Where do you get these photos? Are these photos real?
The photos are all staged, kind of like the moon landing. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
We figured that, right?
But, sorry, NASA. I didn't mean it. But no, the photos, some people would think that we have our officers taking pictures and just posting them to Instagram, which is not the case. I couldn't imagine the kind of things we'd see if we did that. But I have an access to all the incident reports, so I can kind of cherry pick the best pictures and share the best content.
Yeah, so we're talking about you're getting photos from all the airports across the nation, and this is real stuff that people truly believe they can get away with.
Right, it's actual items that people brought through. Some people will actually wonder, well, was this like a test where you were testing your employees? And no, we don't post those types of things on our Instagram account. Everything we post was actually something that somebody tried to bring on the plane.
So my personal favorite is the mummy. Somebody trying to bring a mummy to the checkpoint.
The movie prop.
The movie prop, okay.
Yeah, from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
So what's your personal favorite?
I would almost say the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but due to my quirky, odd sense of humor, my favorite was a sandwich slicer. Like when you see it at deli, it's got the huge blade on it that spins around and cuts super thin slices of roast beef. It's like someone tried to bring a sandwich slicer.
Well, so you're saying your humor, right? So part of the success, or the big chunk of the success, is solely based on your captioning. And you credit to this, you kind of say, I've seen you or heard you joke about dad humor, but where do you get your wits about the captioning? Because it's a big part of the photo.
I don't know. I guess there's just been, ever since I was a kid, I've I've been a big fan of all kinds of humor. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Monty Python, Far Side. I guess it all just you kind of soak that up, and it just kind of, who knows where your influences come from.
Yeah, but your followers are getting you.
And my dad was kind of corny, so maybe or he still is kind of corny, so maybe I get some of that from him. But my daughter, my 9-year-old, she says I'm not funny. So maybe my dad humor is not effective. I don't know.
Well, your following says otherwise, because I read the comments under your pictures, and people are pro Bob. Like, they think you're the funniest. They get the joke and they react to it. So I think that says something.
Well, that's my goal.
Well, let's see if we have any questions. I'm seeing whether or not. Okay, here's a question from Jennifer. Do people really bring guns and knives to the checkpoint?
Absolutely. And knives are always a daily occurrence. Firearms are pretty much almost always a daily occurrence. Like I said, we find about 70 a week in carry-on bags, and the majority of those are loaded. And the main excuse is, the main reason is I forgot it was there. My favorite is someone blamed it on their mom once. My mom put it in my bag. It's like, well, what kind of mother do you have?
Setting you up for failure.
But yeah, absolutely. People bring it all the time, and I think sometimes they might think that if they have a concealed carry permit, that allows them to bring it on the plane, which is not the case. No firearms whatsoever. But you can't travel with them in checked baggage, as long as you follow our procedures, which you can find at tsa.gov.
Right, but so people want to know. So once these items get confiscated, what happens to them? Like, in particular, the question from Crystal, she asks, what happened to the sandwich slicer?
The sandwich slicer, I don't know exactly what happened to it. I don't really get into the meat of a lot of these reports, but I can pretty much guess what happened to it. They gave the traveler options. We don't confiscate anything. We give travelers options. If you have time, you can take it out to your car. You could actually put it in your check bag and have it shipped to you. If you have somebody waiting for you, you can take it out to them and they can get it to you at a later date. So we give everyone all the options we can to allow them to keep the item, as long as it's not a firearm. If it's a firearm, the police take over and it's up to them. But with a sandwich slicer, we try to let you keep your sandwich slicer because we know you need to slice your meats.
So, kind of going back to your followers. So, with over 800,000 people commenting or viewing your photos, has anybody ever said, wait a minute, that was mine? Or that was my mom's, like the cane with the twist off? Could you tell us a little bit about that cane?
Which one? We've had many.
So it's a cane where it looks like a regular.
With the bullet.
It's a sword. It literally twists.
But the handle's a bullet.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the sword's prohibited and the bullet's prohibited. So it's like a double whammy.
Right.
But I'm sure we've had somebody say it's mine, but I can't recall any specific instances. But I think people might be ashamed sometimes to say, yeah, that was me. I brought that chainsaw through the checkpoint.
Oh man. I mean,
But
one's taking.
I fully expect it to happen. In fact, some people have asked me if people bring things through for the sole purpose of trying to get on our account. I wouldn't put it past people, but I have no information of that ever happening.
So a couple other questions that people are asking. How does one get started with Instagram? Like, you started from the bottom, now you're here. I mean, we're talking Rolling Stone, you're getting people coming over to your house to interview personally, national recognition. So how does one get started?
Well, with TSA, for example, we've already got the fact that we're a nationally or internationally known government agency going for us. So we've already got that branding out there that we're TSA. But even when we started, we started out at zero followers. And our following has built up organically as time has gone on. Like I said, within the first week or two, Jimmy Kimmel was talking about us, and then you're getting a newspaper article here and there, you're getting interviews, and as you're doing all these, you're building word of mouth, and slowly you see your followers rise. And about this time last year, we had several things. We had PBS NewsHour and Washington Post and a few other things kind of combined, and our followers just jumped a couple 100,000 just because of that.
Totally, but the thing about Instagram is that while people don't think about TSA as, we love the TSA, we get it. I mean, we get some hate mail.
Wait a minute, you don't have
some bad recognition.
You don't have one of those foam fingers that says TSA is #1?
Of course, right? I mean, we are. I mean, I'm biased, right? Aren't you? But what would you say what is the key message that we're trying to condone with the traveling public or with your followers? There's something out there that we're trying to...
We're trying to inform the traveling public about what they can and can't bring, #1. We're also trying to better prepare the traveling public before they get to the checkpoint with travel tips. kind of behind the scenes looks at what our officers do, because when you're traveling, a lot of times you're in and out of the checkpoint, in most cases within a few minutes, and you're not really worried about the job TSA is doing. You're worried about, is my bag going to alarm? Am I going to get through? I need to get to my gate. So what we're doing is we're providing like a lot of the behind the scenes things that you wouldn't normally see at a checkpoint, and you wouldn't know is going on. So we're showing the things we're finding. We're showing some of the behind the scenes things, like with our TSA canines. Everyone loves our dogs.
Of course.
And so it kind of gives a inside view, and we're trying to, we're not really in the entertainment business, but we like to entertain to get people's interest and to get them to come back for more, and through that we're able to educate and get a message out. And plus, with over 800,000 followers, if we have a really important message we need to get out, we've got that base right there that we can communicate with instantly.
Absolutely. And just a friendly reminder, if you guys have questions, make sure you're commenting down below. As we said before, we'll be here for a few more minutes, so we want to make sure that all the questions are answered to Bob, aka Bob the Blogger. You want to talk a little bit about the Bob the Blogger part?
What, as far as how I got the name?
Yeah.
It's kind of like Bob the Builder,
Of course.
It just kind of works.
It rolls off the tongue, Bob the Blogger. Blogger Bob.
I mean, I've definitely been called worse. But it all goes back to a guy named Glenn Price. He was our web specialist here at TSA. He now works at GSA. But we had a video going up about I was screening the MacBook Air because there were some problems with it. But long story short, Glenn said, "What should I title it?" And I said, "I don't know. What do you think?" And he said, "Blogger Bob screens the MacBook Air."
Perfect.
And I said, "Okay." And from then on, it's been Blogger Bob.
Did you just credit him for that name?
I did.
I think you should trademark it or something. You got to be Blogger Bob. So I see that you linked that on your Instagram also. It's another source of the traveling public to get some insight on best practice in general. But what other things can you, in your role with social media and Instagram, so what is the biggest learning lesson you've received out of your experience? Like, is there a particular day and time you like to post things to get the most reaction? Like, do you notice any trends at all when you're posting?
There is a lot of posts and advice you can take on the best times to post and the best days, which I try to use some of that, but I find in the end that it all comes down to how good the content is. If you have good content, it's going to get a good reaction. I'd say the thing I've learned the most, which I kind of already knew going in, but it just the results have solidified it, is make your content interesting. Choose pictures that are going to get people's reaction and make them comment, and don't just post because you feel like you have to post something. Choose your best content and stick to it, and don't just post like a schedule. I'm going to post it 9, 2, and 5 every day.
Well, there's actually a question that kind of piggybacks on that, what you just said. So Sarah is asking, what is the strangest picture you've received for posting?
There's so many.
I mean, it's all bizarre. I mean, if you've checked it out, I mean,
there are so many.
Everything's shocking. It's shock value at some point, right?
The one that always
mask.
There's a bullet mask.
The bullet mask. That's bizarre.
There's so many strange ones, but the one that always pops into my head is of course the sandwich slicer, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie prop. Because I mean, think about it. Not only was it the reaction of the TSA officers seeing this thing wheeled up to the checkpoint, but this guy's going around the airport with this corpse.
I mean, it's life size. Was it
like
6 feet?
Corpse, in a wheelchair,
long?
wheeling him around the airport. And just could you imagine all the reaction? It's just the whole thing.
Wait,
bizarre.
did they have to book a ticket for that prop?
I would imagine so. I mean, I really don't know, but if it took up a seat, then yeah.
I mean, guess it's fighting over the armrest. So I have a question. So we're talking about movie props, right? So what about pets? People and their pets. Like I've heard through the grapevines that people actually forget to remove their pet from the carrier and have it go through the checkpoint or the X-ray. Is this true, or is this just a rumor?
Nope, it's happened. And I think it's actually happened with children before, believe it or not. But with the pets, the one that gets me is there was a Chihuahua and checked baggage. There was an alarm, and they opened up this check bag, and a Chihuahua popped out. And imagine the officer's face when that happened. But it turns out the Chihuahua happened to just crawl into the bag when the woman was packing. She didn't know.
Are you kidding?
That's what she says.
Oh, gosh.
And she zipped up the bag, and it wasn't a carry-on bag. It was a check bag. So this dog was about to get shipped in with the cargo, which could have been dangerous. It gets pretty cold up there, and the pressure.
Or hot,
but
right?
Luckily we found him. And we have this. If you scroll down through our Instagram account, you'll see a picture of the Chihuahua, and he's not happy.
So somebody has a question probably related to how you beat Beyonce in the Rolling Stone as most popular. Crystal asks, have you had any celebs call any of your posts out? Any recognition? So you're saying that Beyonce did not comment of, hey, how did this account beat my account?
I think that conversation would be private between her and Jay-Z. They probably had that conversation over coffee and cigars or something. I don't know. But
isn't it Ciroc, right? No, aren't they friends with Diddy?
Yeah, but I really don't. I'm sure. I don't know. I really don't know if any celebrities have commented.
So you're saying you can get a cup of coffee and no one knows, hey, that's Bob Burns from TSA's Instagram.
It usually only happens with other federal employees. Like one time I got off the bus when I was still living in the D.C. area, and this guy said, "Hey, Blogger Bob," and I just assumed he worked. I just assumed he worked for TSA. And
dude, you're Insta famous.
My friend told me he worked for the Treasury Department. I didn't even know. So it's like I'm famous in the government too.
Well, you know. So, what has been your favorite part about this whole journey?
The success it's received and the attention it's brought to our workforce. That we're not just finding small pocket knives, and that we're actually finding dangerous things that people are trying to bring on planes, and that the people are receiving it well. A lot of people actually say, in addition to our message, a lot of people are saying that our account brightens their day, with the puns, which I'm glad to be able to help out with that.
Totally. I mean, what is it? What did Jimmy Kimmel say about the hashtags?
Oh, he said, this is then. We don't use hashtags that much anymore.
Right.
But then he said that we use more hashtags than a 13-year-old girl.
Oh my gosh. Ouch. How did that make you feel, though? I mean, they literally called you out, though.
Well, I was. It was
flattering.
Oh yeah, it was flattering that they actually mentioned us on live TV, and at that time we were, like I said, we had 0 followers starting.
So there's a difference as soon as he called you guys out.
Well, not just that, but I wanted to use those hashtags to try to draw people in, to let them give them awareness. But it was kind of funny because a lot of the hashtags I use are ridiculous. Like I said, one of the hashtags was like gun to a knife fight, and all sorts of different weird hashtags. So
we're seeing your questions come in, and we still want to invite more questions, so feel free to comment below. But it looks like we got another question from Joel, and he wants to know, how do you get your job?
How did I get my job? Well, I was mowing my lawn one day, and next thing I know, I'm waking up in this dark warehouse. And they told me I was going to be social media person for TSA. It's very bizarre, but
5-year-old Bob was like, when I grow up, I'm going to be Insta famous. Well, I'm sure that went over.
Well, what's funny is I started
awesome.
with TSA in 2002 as a screener, and
which is a transportation security officer at the airport, right?
Exactly. And I never would have guessed in a million years that my job would lead me to being a social media specialist for a government organization.
Knowledge, so you understand from the beginning, from the field to where you're at now.
Right.
So you would have never guessed it from applying for the job, getting the job, to where you're at now.
Right. I mean, I knew I wanted to make TSA a career, but I didn't know where it was going to lead me. I would have just assumed it would be in management somewhere, but to actually be involved in social media and the job I'm doing is perfect. I love it.
And now managing our TSA Instagram account. So I think that's perfect. So we see a lot of travel tip questions, and I don't want to ignore those questions, but where's the best place that our traveling public can get those answers?
Ask TSA. Ask TSA is based on Twitter and Facebook Messenger. You could also go to tsa.gov to look it up and get specific links. But we have a team of employees, TSA employees, that work 365 days a year, and they're answering questions. You have a question about, I didn't get pre-checked. Why didn't I get pre-checked? You can find out. They'll help you out.
So that's what, just tweeting it, or?
Yeah, you can tweet it to them, or Facebook Messenger. You don't have to talk on the phone to them. Sometimes people don't like talking on the phone. It's awkward. Like my daughter, the only thing she does is text. She won't talk to anybody on the phone, even her grandparents. But,
so even if you can explain what you're trying to carry with you, you can just take a photo, send it over to them, and they'll review it, let you know if you're A-okay to send, or...
You can take a picture of your meat slicer and send it to Ask TSA, and they can tell you whether or not you can bring it.
This gosh darn meat slicer.
And
I want a sandwich now.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost lunchtime. These pictures, a lot of them are, as you can imagine, are pretty interesting. And the ones that are more quirky and interesting, I will screenshot and use on the TSA Instagram account to kind of advertise Ask TSA.
Of course. So we're wrapping things up now, but Bob, it was a pleasure having Bob. So thank you for spending the day or this morning with us. And if you guys have any ideas for any future video, let us know. Comment below. And until next time.